my virtual gavel, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And if you would all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. We'll get this figured out. So welcome to our brave new world of video meetings. We are going to follow this same agenda that we would have if we were in person. Michelle, I'm not aware of any changes to the agenda.
None that I'm aware of, no.
All right. And I did not receive any public comments via email to share. Do we have communications?
No communications.
Not specifically to us, right? Just to every district in the state, and we'll get to those. All right. Then, Cully, if you could bring us up to speed on the policy committee meeting from the 13th.
Certainly. We met the 13th, and going from bad notes and a worse memory, a lot has happened since then. I will start with the policies we looked at. 7,000 census, 7,001 admissions to school, and this new language was added to the policy that could require unemployed minors to finish the school year. 7,002 education of homeless children. This policy is required. Revisions were made to this. This was also revised less than 2 years ago. 7,002.1 is regulations. 7,003 determination of student residency. Changes were made to this. Typos were fixed, and the changes were more or less due to the changes in the homeland or the homeless security or homeless children policy. Excuse me. 7,003.1 and .2 are both regulations. 7,004 admission of non-resident and resident students. This was revised 1 year ago. No further revisions were made. 7,005 student attendance. This policy is required, and under this administrative responsibilities language was added. That is new to this policy, but has already been being done. The term homeschool coordinator was added, and incentive statement was changed, as well as disciplinary sanctions. A statement there was deleted. 7,006 student withdrawal from school. 7,007 student dismissal from guardian was added throughout. 7,008 release time for religious instruction. 7,009 educational stability for students in foster care. 7,100 student health examinations. Invasive examinations was deleted, and accommodations of religious beliefs was added. 7,103 pregnant students. This policy was deleted as all students are entitled to education. 7,104 suicide prevention. Guidance was changed to school counselor, and that 7,104.1 and 2 are both regulations. 7,105 student welfare. 7,106 head lice. There are a few grammatical changes made. The same for 7,107 management of student allergies. A few grammatical changes made. We also started looking at 3 other required policies: protection of student, teacher, and principal, personal information, data security and privacy, education records, and information security breach. These 3 policies, I'm not sure if I said it or not, are required and will be looked at a future date. And that is all I have.
Okay. The last ones that you have just started looking at, how much of that is informed by what we went through last summer?
That's a good question. I'm sure we will talk about that when we look at them.
Okay.
Yeah, and then a couple emails have gone out. Patty may want to weigh in on this. And I think I saw an email come back. The policies on the next policy meeting. When did we get information back on that or not? Am I making that up?
No, we got all of the information for the next meeting. So we have it in our hands, and we'll do that during our next meeting.
Okay, which has not been scheduled yet, correct?
It is scheduled, but it'll have to probably be virtual.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to items for the consent agenda.
Resolved that the consent agenda items A, B, C, D, E, and F are hereby approved.
Okay, I will need a motion for that
Michael?
and a second.
Maria.
Jason?
Any discussion? What I'm going to ask is that tonight we do our voting by show of hands to help Michelle to not have to count voices or figure out who said what. So all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Same sign. Any abstentions? Okay, good on that.
Okay. Resolved,
Then we'll move on to items for board agenda.
yes, resolved that the Watertown City School District hereby approve the 2020-2021 proposed administrative budget for the Jefferson, Lewis, Herkimer, Hamilton, Oneida Board of Cooperative Educational Services as mailed to the component districts.
Can I have a motion on that?
Cully.
And a second? I'm sorry, I didn't hear a second.
Susie.
Susie, thanks. Any discussion?
Is there anything new in it that we need to know, or is it pretty much on par with previous years?
I think that might be a question for you, Patty.
Okay, I wasn't sure if Josh was jumping in or not.
Oh.
So yeah, it's pretty much on par where we were at. We've worked through that.
Okay. And it's not impacted by our current circumstances.
I'm sorry, my computer went out. Did you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So they don't anticipate changes because of the current circumstances.
Well, I think we all have to anticipate that, but as of when they submitted this, that was, you know, times have ever changed things, so.
Okay. All right. So then what we're voting on is the budget that we were presented with. All
Correct.
those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Same sign. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Resolved that the Watertown City School District Board of Education hereby casts one ballot vote for 4 vacancies on the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, a quorum being needed
Michelle,
to
you're on mute.
each. That,
You're muted.
I can hear her.
Check your
I can
microphone
hear.
on your keyboard.
I can hear it.
I can hear.
I can hear her too.
I can hear.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Right above the number 8, Michelle. Check to see that that little light isn't on your keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
There's a button right above the number 8, and it looks like a little microphone. If the light is on, you're muting yourself.
Stacy, we can hear her.
No,
Yeah, we should
Stacy,
be all
can you
set.
hear any of us?
I can hear everybody.
Yeah, we're good, Michelle. I think Stacy's the one who can't hear.
Okay. Where was I? A quorum being needed to elect each candidate. The 3 vacancies have a 3-year term of office, July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2023, and 1 vacancy for a 2-year term of office, April 21, 2020 through June 30, 2022. 1 vote is cast for each of the following candidates: Alice Draper, Jennifer Jones, Grace Rice, Barbara Lofink.
Okay, since there are the same number of candidates as vacancies, I'll entertain a motion to elect them on one slate.
Maria.
And a second.
Nancy.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Same sign. Any abstentions? Okay.
Resolved that the Watertown City School District combine with Immaculate Heart Central School for the 2020-21 school year to form a varsity boys ice hockey team, and students from IHC will become members of the Watertown City School District varsity boys hockey team. These teams will compete under Watertown City School District colors.
Can I have a motion on that?
Jason.
Michael,
Okay, Jason and Michael, motion and a second. Any discussion? Anything we need to know about how this has worked previously?
Yeah, it's worked very well, and it's just the same as what we've done in the past few years.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries.
Resolved that an agreement with the Watertown City School District and the Watertown Town Instructional Watertown Clerical and Board Association for the period of July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2025 is hereby approved.
Can I have a motion?
Cully.
Okay, a motion by Cully and a second by Nancy. Any discussion? Any highlights of Patty or Tina that you think are important for us to be aware of?
No, I think that we worked really hard on this, and I think it's an area that needed to be looked at, you know, and we studied it very carefully, and I think that we've really made some great strides in this unit. I'm very, very proud of this, and I'm very proud of the work that the clerical staff does on behalf of the district.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion?
so that's a 5-year term, correct?
That's correct.
All right, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Resolved that the district's 2019-2020 school calendar is amended and approved as follows. March 16, 2020, Staff Development Day. March 17, 2020, last available snow day.
I need a motion
Susie.
and a second.
Jason.
Any discussion? Patty, SED's good with this sort of thing?
Yeah, we actually need to do this because the executive order started on March 18th. And in that order, it's pretty much stated that you have to use any available days that you have left in your calendar. So to cover the district, we used the first day as a staff development day because we actually had staff in that day.
Right.
And then the second day would be considered a snow day. And then the executive order started March 18th.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Resolved that the change orders for general construction and electrical adds and credits are hereby approved.
I need a motion
Michael,
and a second.
Maria,
Cully.
Any discussion? Things are moving right along on this?
Well, yes and no, you know, because the governor's orders for construction, if it's not essential, there's been a lot of change with executive orders. So we are working with our legal team to make sure that any construction that's being done is also approved and essential at this point. But also we're making sure that we're in compliance with the executive orders from the governor's office.
Great, thanks. So all those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Resolved that the following revised Board of Education policies are hereby approved and adopted. 7,000 census, 7,001 admission to school, 7,002 education of homeless children, 7,003 determination of student residency, 7,004 admission of non-resident and resident students, 7,005, student attendance, 7,006, student withdrawal from school, 7,007, student dismissal, 7,008, a release time for religious instruction, 7,009, educational stability for students in foster care, 7,100, student health examinations, 7,104, suicide prevention, 7,105, student welfare, 7,106, head lice, 7,107, management of student allergies.
Okay, and we just got our report on that. So I'll entertain a motion
Nancy.
and a second.
Michael.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Resolved that the disposal, recycle, or donation of damaged, outdated, and unused books from Ohio Elementary Library is hereby approved.
Can I have a motion for that?
Susie.
And a second.
Jason.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Resolved that the disposal, recycle, or donation of damaged, outdated, and unused books from Sherman Elementary Library is hereby approved.
I'll entertain a motion.
Susie.
Go ahead.
Susie and Cully, you can second that. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, Patricia B. Labar, the Board of Education hereby approves the following: retirement, resignation, leave of absence, appointments permanent, permanent part-time, instructional substitute.
I need a motion for that
Michael.
and a second.
Nancy.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Whereas on February 4th, March 3rd, and March 17th, 2020, prior to the beginning of the season, the board appointed individuals to serve as coaches for the spring 2020 athletic season. And whereas a result of various executive orders and declarations of emergency, schools were closed effective March 14th, 2020. And whereas schools are tentatively scheduled to reopen as of March 15, 2020, but it is uncertain whether the schools will actually reopen on April 15, 2020. And whereas spring 2020 athletic seasons did not begin prior to school closure, and spring 2020 extracurricular athletics are not occurring during the period of school closure, and where it is unknown whether there will be spring 2020 athletic season given the indefinite duration of school closure, and whereas the district wishes to ensure coaches are compensated on a pro rate basis for any portion of the spring 2020 extracurricular athletic season for which students participate in athletics, but that coaches do not receive compensation for services that are not provided in the event that there is no student participation in spring 2020 athletic seasons. And whereas the board recognizes that coaches receive a longevity stipend based upon the number of years of service an individual has served as a coach, now therefore it is resolved, in the event that school resumes and students participate in extracurricular athletics for any portion of the spring 2020 athletic season, coaching stipends will be prorated to reflect the duration of the spring 2020 athletic season, and coaches shall receive longevity credit for the service during the spring 2020 athletic season. in the event students do not participate in any portion of what would have been the spring 2020 athletic season. All coaching appointments for the spring 2020 athletic season are deemed rescinded, and no stipends shall be paid. Coaches shall not receive longevity credit for the spring 2020 athletic season.
Okay, I need a motion for that.
Maria,
Cully.
Maria and Cully, motion and a second. Any discussion?
is this pretty boilerplate of what all districts are doing across the board with spring athletics?
Yes.
Do we need to update that because we now know that we're not going back to 15th? Or is it okay as is?
Yeah.
I think what I heard was enough of, we know that there may be more changes,
Mm-hmm.
that it probably doesn't need to be, because in 2 weeks it may change again. If that's okay with you all?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the gist is there.
Okay. All right, and then all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Resolved, excuse me, resolved that the general construction contract for the capital outlay project with Winton Construction is hereby approved.
I need a motion
Jason.
and a second.
Michael,
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. And that is the end of items for board action, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Well then, let's move on to items for discussion, starting with the superintendent of schools report.
Thank you, Beth. I first of all would like to start off by saying that our thoughts are with all of the families that are being impacted in one way or another by COVID-19. The Watertown City School District and the community, surrounding community, have really pulled together to make sure that the needs of our students are being met. And I'd like to first start off talking about food service and just the simple changes that have been done along the way, being very thoughtful to our students, yet at the same time being respectful of social distancing and our staff. So we've served since the first week. It's hard to believe that we're already into the 4th week of this, but in the first week and coming on board, we were able to get meals out to our students Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The following week, we went with a model of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I really thank Craig Orvis and Mary Hughes and Brenda Blount and really their teams for coming together and making all of this happen. When you think that we've served almost 13,000 breakfasts and lunches in the past 3 weeks in this format, it's been a tremendous amount of work by everyone, and it's just been incredible. But knowing that we went from the Monday, Wednesday, Friday and still seeing social distancing, not always optimal because it's really hard when you're putting out that many breakfasts and lunches to make that happen. We then scaled back to a Monday, Thursday model, still doing the same number of breakfasts and lunches, but in a different format. So if you're talking Monday and Thursday, you're doing 3 breakfasts and 3 lunches on Monday. And then on Thursday, you're doing 2 breakfasts and 2 lunches. In addition to what we're doing within the district at our 5 sites, we're working with CAPC, and we took on a partnership very quickly with United Way, CAPC, and the Urban Mission to make sure that we were really meeting the needs of a lot of the community in many different places, and they had access to some food sites that we didn't. So it was a great partnership to start early on, not only for the food part of it, but CAPC wanting to donate and deliver the food and take care of that. They didn't have the number of volunteers, and that's where our staff came in and being able to volunteer their time to go out to those 10, 11, 12 sites, because as we work through this, we're finding pockets of food insecurity, and we're able to open up a site working through CAPC, getting the volunteers, and getting out to where it needs to be. So then the Monday, Thursday model, we've been doing that for the past couple of weeks. This is the second week we've done it. And next week, because of social distancing and the concern for our employees, we are going to scale back and do it 1 day a week and pass out 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches. And that starts Monday, April 13th. And again, huge shout out to our food service, because they've gone above and beyond, and not just the food service, the community, CAPC for getting involved, and everything, and all of our volunteers, and the list goes on. And I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, because it's truly been a total team effort to make that happen. I want to remind people that we are updating our website daily. I know that at the last board meeting, I showed you where we started on the main page with a lot of information that links to really great at-home learning resources. But above and beyond that, we are forming more community partnerships for opportunities for social and emotional support for not just our students, but our families. So, and then updating families through School Messenger. So when there are big messages like there was yesterday with the New York pause being put on a further pause, I put out a message last night, and in that message I said to, reach out to the teachers, to the counselors, to the principals, or to me. And I actually got 2 or 3 emails last night and again this morning, and it's really helpful because it doesn't take very long. When we know what the needs are, we're able to support families. And for example, if a parent is struggling with some of the online platforms that we're doing with their first grader, this morning we had a teacher who's an expert in that platform reach out to that parent. And our job right now is to really support each other. And I think parents need to hear the message from the school that we're in this together, and parents are working so hard to support their children at home, but we're with you right along the way. So if you have a need, we have students that didn't have the opportunity to pick up their Chromebook, and we're hearing about that, and we're making arrangements to make sure that, all students are being provided with equitable opportunities, and we're more than happy to help as long as we know that there's a need. Let us know, reach out to me through email. Again, check that website. At least on a weekly basis, I'm going to be out with School Messenger and getting out the bigger messages. This afternoon, while we're doing all of the things that deal with COVID-19, we're also running the business, that needs to continue to go. For example, right now we're working on our Smart Schools bond that was submitted, 2 years ago in January. It was just approved last month. And we're working very hard to get that work ready for this summer, and then it will go into the following summer as well. But we're laying the groundwork to make that happen, along with just a list of many other things. So when we step back and say, okay, we need to address the education and making sure that we're up on food service right now. So we're working really hard to do the day-to-day things that need to be done for COVID-19, but at the same time recognize that it's still a lot of business in the background that needs to continue to move forward. And I think that, again, most people need to acknowledge the fact that we have people that are working around the clock to make things happen and to continue to move our district forward. And at the end of the day, everyone's doing their best and keeping the children at heart and making great decisions for our kids. So, I'm glad this is kind of public tonight, so to speak, and going out through YouTube. And I hope some families are listening, because we're here to support you. One thing that I'm hearing more often than not is I'm hearing from a lot of really great parents that are struggling because they just don't know how to best support their child. And, going forward, you're not in this alone. And if you think about where we're at as a state and where we're at as a country, we're all experiencing the same things. So as we keep moving forward, we're behind the scenes trying to figure out where we can best serve our students when we have the opportunity to have them back in school. And we don't have the answer to when they're coming back to school yet. We don't know that. But we want families to know that while they're getting through their day-to-day tasks the best way that they can, we're also working behind the scenes to try to figure out, you know, what's most important happening in the learning right now, what's being missed, and where are we going to move forward? Because we're all going to grow from this, and we're all going to grow together, and we're going to learn, and we're going to get our kids where they need to be. So I think the best thing for me is to let families be families and enjoy their time together and get through it the best way you can, because I have a feeling that we're having some really good conversation, and there's a lot more that's happening above and beyond any learning that any of us could ever expect at home. So I just want to thank everybody for working together, and keep working. I know it's not easy. I just want, you know, Stacy and Tina and Josh are going to give you other pieces of what's been happening. And so I guess I would say I'm going to stop for now, because they have a lot more updates to continue with the work that's being done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you,
So
Patty.
Stacy, that would naturally fall to you to follow.
So I'm going to start out with some really great news. I want to really just express our deep gratitude and thank you to the community support that we've had. There has been just an outpouring of support, both from our own staff in terms of volunteering, but also just in terms of supporting some of the needs that our community has at this time. With regard to Food for Families, which is another way that we've tried to sustain that program through all of this, and keep social distancing practices in place while still having volunteers help to run that program and make sure that our families are still receiving food supplements. We've received just so many generous donations, and I just want to draw your attention to some of them. Josh himself donated, so we want to thank him. JKA Enterprises, the Stefanini family, they donated. North Elementary PTO sent in a donation. We have a private donation from some relatives of a staff member. Want to send a thank you to them as well. Hannaford was extremely generous and donated 600 pounds of fruit to our families last week. We were able to deliver fresh bananas, oranges, and apples along with the regularly packed bag of food. This week they donated 200 boxes of macaroni and cheese. And they've also sent in a gift card that can be used in their store to buy some items that sometimes are not always immediately available at the food bank. As you know, supplies are affected in all sorts of areas. And so that has been something that we've been able and will be able to dip into if we need to. So very appreciative of that. Northern Credit Union, they donated a ton of food items a couple of weeks ago and are also sending in a monetary donation for the program. Cabot had an additional supply of yogurt and donated 3 weeks worth of yogurt for our families. So last week we were able to deliver a tub of yogurt to each family. We'll be able to do that again this week and likely next week as well. So I just really need to thank those people and organizations for all of the support that they've provided. That program has just been an incredible boon. And I also need to thank the food bank because we were afraid we were going to be shut down last week, because right now they are only supplying emergency packages of food to really emergency providers. And we weren't sure we would be designated as a provider. So we made a couple of phone calls and spoke with some people at the food bank. And they are able to work with us within the supply of dry goods that they still have. So very appreciative of their willingness to work with us, even though they're inundated with requests right now. And lastly, before moving into just a quick instructional update, Nor Brimson, their Global Care, which is their giving back to the community organization, the North America part of that, they've been very generous to us in the past, and as you know, helped us to really jumpstart our one-to-one initiative in the district. But they reached out to us last week, and they were able to award us $14,850 to supplement not only our Food for Families program, but also the provision of hotspot access to any family who is in need of that in our community. So just a really amazing donation from all of these organizations, but a special thanks to KBGCNA for being so supportive of what we're doing with kids and their families. That takes us into with the provision of hotspots to families in need into really phase 3 of our instruction. I think I shared with all of you previously that we had kind of a 3-phase movement into what virtual instruction might look like. The first phase kicked off in week 1. That was really just a reaching out to our families, thinking and maybe hoping on a prayer that this might have been a really short-term thing, trying to make sure that the immediate needs of families were met and that all students, were, reassured that their teachers were still going to be in contact with them, etc. The second week saw phase 2 of that, which had us up and running with a website full of materials for students to access and really do independently. And then this last week, and starting this week, we've really geared up with our staff, and I have to thank Lisa Blank, Tara Elmer, and Jason St. Croix and their team of teachers who are very skilled with technology for helping to get all of us up and running with Google Classroom in grades 3 through 12, and then Seesaw and/or Class Dojo for our K2 staff, so that we have platforms that are consistent for families to access, and they don't feel like they have to navigate a ton of different platforms, and are able to have instruction provided to their children, both asynchronously and synchronously in some cases. So we have a lot of movement on that in this last week, and 100% of our teachers at Case and the high school have Google Classrooms established and are posting tasks and assignments and communicating with students. And K6 just kicked off yesterday. So they are also moving forward with that and starting to post assignments. And we're able to see some of the things that students are producing virtually. And it's really kind of cool to see, first graders or second graders or so on put forth their work in a virtual manner. So a lot of nice things are happening. We're hoping that families feel supported with this, but if there's anything else that they need, just to echo what Patty said, please reach out to us because we're here to support you through all of this. It's a learning curve for everybody, but as we all become more comfortable with what this may look like on the horizon, we're hopeful that you feel supported and that you have what you need to be successful with your child at home.
Great, thank you. Tina, I'm going to guess that your work is a little more skewed right now to the pupil support side of things, but we'll let you report on what you're doing.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I just want to start out by saying that what a pleasure it is to work with the Watertown team. This is just an amazing experience and overwhelming support from everyone from food service to maintenance to custodial to the teachers to administration. It's magical, and it couldn't happen without everybody's cooperation. So one of the groups I've been working with, we met twice through Zoom. Thank goodness for technology in this day and age. We met with the pupil personnel support staff right at the beginning of this emergency closure, and then last week. And that team is dynamic. Homeschool coordinators, we have psychologists, we have counselors, social workers. We met via this platform and put together a document which is on the website, and that document contains a plethora of different resources for families. This is a different time. People are home together more, and there is a silver lining here where people are eating dinner together perhaps. Stacy and I were over at Massey at the beginning of all this, and we had to pause for a minute. We heard children outside playing. And that's something you don't hear often anymore. And it's great to see, and you see families out walking. But one of the things our support staff are doing, they are calling and reaching out to groups of students every day. They're documenting, they're connecting families and parents and students with agencies. There's hotline numbers that have been set up. So they're really bridging the gap and really checking on our students. And I think that means a lot. The feedback that we've received is exceptional. And so that will continue. And that group, again, is working very hard. Another group I've been working with very closely, and Patty had mentioned this a little bit earlier, that in ways it's business as usual. So we've begun working, Mr. Fairchild and the counselors and I at the high school have actually started working on the master schedule. So I've met with that group twice. Patty, Stacy, and I will be meeting with that group tomorrow based on the new guidance that came out from the state with graduation requirements. So there's lots of information. We're pouring over that memo that came out today. It really is on the side it favors our students. So we want to get together, talk about that document, and then make a plan moving forward so our students can be successful and we can support them in graduating. So that master schedule piece, the counselors right now are working on pre-scheduling students, and we'll do that through the mail, and then parents will get those and they'll be able to reach out to the counselors. So we're going to meet again coming up, and we're meeting tomorrow with the counselors on that memo, but we're going to continue that process with the counselors to plan for next year. Also in the area of recruitment of teachers, Lisa Warden, my assistant, she's been working with me very closely. We've been putting ads out and job postings for those positions. And I think we'll most likely go to this platform to do interviews, which will be an interesting endeavor. But I think it'll work out very well. We're all becoming very proficient with this. So we are continuing on with the recruitment of staff in all areas, and looking forward to certainly continuing that process as well. We also just working with different teachers and staff and trying to support them. This is a hardship for all of us. I mean, people are home with their families and they're working on instructing their students. And so Patty, Stacy, and I, Josh, who are here for everyone. I was on the phone today with a staff member, and we just want to emphasize the fact that we're here for our staff as well. They're doing wonderful work. And we want to do anything we can to support them in that work. And we know it's a challenge, but it's just amazing getting onto the Empower meetings that are happening. 8 o'clock at night, teachers are online in Zoom in this format doing professional development. They're chatting in the morning over coffee. It's just great. So again, we'll continue to move forward with as much as we can, business as usual out of the personnel office, but people are doing great work and we really appreciate everyone's efforts.
Great, thank you. So Josh, your report is going to take us down a slightly different path, but it's stuff we need to know. You're on mute.
Thank you.
There you go.
There we go. Start again.
I said I don't have the feel-good stuff like the last 3 reports, but this stuff is for me. So I'm going to go ahead and share a second screen and just kind of walk us through. Let me know if you can see. Everybody see that?
Sure can.
Yep. So this is just kind of the main data points, and we'll go through how we get to these numbers relatively quickly. And then I'll just open it up for questions, and if anybody has any, let me know. I'll also send this out to the board afterward. You'll be able to see as we go through this, there's some places where you can drill down and get additional data. So right now the budget is looking to be, the proposed budget is $77 million, I think $6,009 total, which represents an increase of year over year of about $344,000. And targeting a tax levy increase of about 2.25%. Now I know we had the SED presentation out at BOCES in the winter or fall, sometime around then. We definitely don't want to head down the same path as Rome did with leaving money on the table and end up finding ourselves faced with a difficult situation. And originally we were going to go for the 3.09%, and I guess we still could if that's what the board decides. But given the state of the economy, not really knowing what's happening, skyrocketing unemployment rates, the national, I think they were projecting national unemployment at somewhere around 20%. We're traditionally higher than that in our area. So we just felt it was best to kind of lower that target a little bit. We're still increasing year over year from where we were. I think the last couple of years have been right around that 2% mark. Just thought it might be better from the humanitarian side, I guess, if you will. But I'll get into the revenues and how we got to those numbers. So we'll start with the biggest chunk and work our way down with state aid. Now this budget has been redone twice since April 1st now. So as you can see, it went down a little bit when you compare it apples to apples over the prior year, largely because of the pandemic adjustment that was just put in there. Now that should be offset from our federal sources. but it's just not going to be coming from the state. It should come from the Fed. Real property taxes are going to be heading up. This is with a 2.25% would be a $367,000 increase. And next you're going to see the appropriated fund balance is actually decreasing. This is kind of one of the issues when we balance the budget with our appropriated fund balance. It's kind of once you use it, it's not there anymore. Last year it was held steady at 11.8. I'm not entirely sure how accurate that was. I think we were a little closer to 10.8 because of a larger textbook investment toward the end of last year. And then when you add on our BOCES capital project was actually under budgeted by 5%. I think it was a 50-50 split and should have been a 55-45 for the coming years. You take those items and just kind of couple it with where we're forecasting out to end the year this year, and that's where we end up with just under the 10 million for appropriated fund balance. And you see our federal sources increasing. And when I send this out, you can take any one of these items and just kind of, let's see, right click on any of them and show it as a table to get the drill down information. That'll be right in there. And our other sources, the biggest adjustment there was really just our pilot spreadsheet. We cleaned that up, updated it, and we're able to get a more accurate picture of where we should be coming in for that. As we go to the other side, our expenses, one of the first things that we did, you have to right now, especially with everything that's going on with, with the quarterly adjustments that are coming, the first one coming here at the end of the month from Cuomo. We have to plan, hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And one of the first things that we did was kind of go through our current expenses and throughout this whole budget process, kind of with a fine-tooth comb, just to see where there was built-in surplus and reallocate that for more accurate budget, and just to ensure that we were investing in the areas that needed the most attention. Couple that with some of the account code updates that we made, especially on the salary side, and it lets us see where our opportunities were. So in the instruction, it's going to look, it appears to be going down 560,000. In reality, that was just a true up of what our projected expenses were. It actually includes an additional 18 positions, I believe it was, as well as just under about $900,000 increasing in our IT and our computer-aided instruction spending there. So I'm not sure how it got so far. I don't know how so much was built into those codes. I don't know if it was just taken on a annual percentage year over year, if there was a number of retirements, or if it was a combination of all of that stuff together that just kind of kept snowballing. But now that we have everything broke out with transparency reporting and all of that type of stuff that we have, and ESSA reporting that we have to do, so it's even broken down into the school level, it really helps us out with the new account code structure. If you take a look at employee benefits, that pretty much just offsets the variance with our instructional. That's going up 557,000. 411 of that is really from the insurance, where we saw a 1.75% increase there. Social Security also had a 1.6% cost of living adjustment, and TRS was going up 0.7% is what it was. Our BOCES spending stayed relatively flat. It did go down a little bit. In our operations and maintenance, another area that needed some significant investment. You can see here it's going up about 760,000. I know everyone's aware, as we had to vote on you guys had to vote on the loader not being safe and having to rent one over the winter. So I know there's a couple $100,000 in there for that. there's just a lot of maintenance needs in our district that are they're currently not covered by the capital projects. Just kind of felt that we really had to focus on some of the physical and the IT infrastructure and really getting that up to snuff. And now with this pandemic, it's even more important as we're seeing the difficulties that we're having, even trying to remotely work or anything like that, just kind of how far behind we are. Debt service, that's staying pretty flat for us. That matches up with our forecasts. You know, we have a spreadsheet that goes out, I think, until 2035, but that's just going to match up our building aid with the amount of debt that we have. Our transportation is going down 426,000, but that is, again, it's one of those items that was just way overestimated last year, and we kind of paid for it this year as well, because if you overestimate and bank on getting that much aid, and then we don't get that much aid, that's a big contributing factor there. So this is just based off our base contract, coupled with everything that George would have had from athletics, and just kind of keeping field trips pretty close to the same. And general support is the next one down. There's no real, it's just under 100,000. There's not really any big jumps. That was mostly salary code moves. So if some people were in different codes or budgeted in different codes, say under instructional for one, or if they were split between transportation and say personnel support, and now it's all personnel support, stuff like that. So that was just kind of moving around of positions. That really kind of sums up all the major stuff. I'm sure there's questions. So if you want to ask, I'll do the best I can.
Can you give us the really simple explanation of this new quarterly approach that the governor's taking?
They get to assess, I guess, mostly based on their sales revenue and whether or not they want to adjust what we have, what's handed out for aid, and then it's going to be kicked over to the legislature. I think they have 10 days. I know I was in a webinar. Maria, you were in there too, today on that kind of stuff. So we're waiting. The first one should be right after the April 30th, I think was the deadline. That one's just a 1 month. I think the next one was 2 months. The following one was 4 maybe, and then the rest of the year. So he has the right essentially to, if they're not getting the sales revenue, to start shorting some of our stuff.
Okay, so that's impacting what we're receiving as state aid directly.
Yes.
They're not looking at what we're doing quarter by quarter. This is strictly the aid.
It should be more on their revenues coming in and what they can spend
Okay.
Close to our expenses, yeah.
Okay.
So fingers crossed, everybody get out there, stimulate the economy as much as you can.
Josh, they were saying today that the federal money that each school receives should be able to offset that cut. Have you heard any information if it's going to be like a dollar for dollar offset or more or less, or do they not really know right now?
It was in the governor's run that we received on April 1st, it was a dollar for dollar offset, or that's how it was at least proposed to us. I think it was we're at 2.35 million, I think is where it stood. I can tell you the exact. One second. Oh, 2.70. Yeah, 2.351 million. If you take the federally affected areas minus this, that's the rest of the pandemic offset right there. And it's kind of tricky because we had the news call. If you look at the governor's run, it kind of looks like we're going up. It actually looks like we're doing awesome. It looks like we're up 9.96% on a state aid. but it's not the case. What you're seeing there is the UPK is now fully over on the state side instead of Fed. So it makes us look like all of a sudden we went from, I think it was 116,000 on the state side for UPK last year, all the way up to the $3.57 million. So that's a significant chunk of, I think they had us at a $4 million increase. So it makes us stand out or just kind of stick out like a sore thumb for making Outline Bandits, and it's not it's not as it seems.
So it's not any additional money.
No, we're actually down if I go year over year, because they ended up holding our foundation aid the same as what they did last year in this most recent run. So we are down year over year.
So, but that UPK money, it's coming from a different bank account, but it's not a bigger check.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and you're used to using percentages and as a reference, but when I was looking at the 3.09 versus the 2.25, that dollar amount is really not dramatic. Is that correct?
No, it's about, I think it was $137,000 right around there. Okay. I know when I built it with the original 3.09%. The tax levy would have been a $505,000 increase versus that 367.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions from board members? Okay. Any good news, Josh?
That's all good news. We're adding jobs, hoping to add jobs, improving our physical and our IT infrastructure. And I know, well, that's more on Stacy's side, but I know she's got some awesome stuff planned for instruction. So
yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you. I know that this is not an easy task at any time, but especially now when things are kind of a moving target, it's even more challenging. So we appreciate your expertise.
Thanks.
All right. So I think the only other thing is to, we usually look at upcoming dates. There's not much happening for us to go to, but we do tentatively have our next board meeting scheduled for Thursday, April 23rd. Is that still what we're planning on? You're muted again, Patty.
Yes.
There we go.
Yep, April 23rd. Most likely at this point, because we'll still be on pause, we'll set up another virtual meeting and do it the same way.
Yes, that makes sense. So anything else that anyone wants to bring up that might not have been on the agenda? I just personally want to say thank you to the staff, in particular the administrative staff. I know even in regular times, you don't work regular hours, that you're in early, you stay late, you're doing stuff from home on weekends. And I don't know how you've managed to fit even more into your days during this, but we really do appreciate what you're doing for the district. And I know our students and families are going to be better for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, you know, for those of us who don't have a particular task that we have to accomplish, I think, you know, the usual inclination is to try and go help, and, you know, we can't go and be places to help. And that's frustrating sometimes as well. So know that we're with you, and if there is something that you think of where we could be useful, put us to work. So.
Thank you.
All right, well, then if there's no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
And a second?
Michael.
Jason.
And I'm assuming no discussion is necessary. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you all so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.